How's it, changemakers? Welcome to Exponential Africa Live, a weekly live show that focuses on bringing the best thought leadership, technology and innovation to the African continent and the world. I want to go back to 2015 when we started our journey with Singularity University as man-made. After we discovered Singularity University and the possibilities and the potential, we immersed ourselves in the world of exponential technologies. We bought 3D printers, invested in robots, and built augmented and virtual reality worlds. We realigned our business mindsets and pivoted our focus to create a regional and global community of changemakers to future-proof Africa. And we've been doing this through various educational experiences over the last 5 years, building a global community and network of changemakers. The future of work comes up regularly at Singularity University programs, and it seemed necessary that we needed to change with the times and the growing trends. So we bought an Ultimaker and our animation team, creatives and designers started playing. We made all types of things, from phone holders to lens brackets to the legendary Murphy the Bulldog. I've got one of his final prints here, and it's actually his birthday today. How did that get in there? The power of having a 3D printer opened our eyes to amazing possibilities. And if something broke in the office, our first idea is, can we print it? We also make these really cool, realistic 3D printed heads of all our Singularity U South Africa Executive Program graduates, as you can see on the table here. And it's something small, but it really opens up your mind to the future applications of this amazing technology. And having that reminder on your desk really helps with changing your mindset. So tonight we're going to be covering this amazing rise of 3D printing that is happening around the world. And can we cut to the 3D printer cam, please? Just wait. Okay, there we go. As you can see, we're in the middle of printing something special, a special treat for you guys that we will reveal at the end of the show. So while that keeps printing, let's get into it. 3D printing is seeing a breakthrough and passing the tipping point. It's poised to transform the industrial economy. Its extreme flexibility not only allows for easy customization of goods, but also eliminates assembly and inventories and enables products to be redesigned for higher performance. The global 3D printing market is expected to reach $34.8 billion by 2024. So we're going to be covering the latest tech stories around this industry. Then we'll be having a conversation with our incredible panel. We have Pablos Holman, a hacker and inventor of the Makerbot and many other cool things. Petra Rees, CEO and founder of Toyz, a South African 3D printing education company, and Andrei, the CEO and founder of Toyz, a 3D printing company and Singularity University faculty on additive manufacturing. A special mention to our partners, who this would not be possible without: our collaboration partner, the Development Bank of Southern Africa, our global partner Deloitte, and our strategic partner MTN. Thank you for your commitment and dedication to really making a positive impact in South Africa and Africa. Lastly, if you want to see more of these weekly episodes, make sure to like and subscribe to our YouTube page. Click that bell next to the subscribe button to know when we go live, and register on the website to get more info and be eligible for giveaways. We really appreciate your feedback. Keep letting us know how we can do better. Thank you for all of you that are watching, subscribing, and engaging with us. Let's jump right into it. The 3D printing revolution is real, with so many new stories coming out each day, from shoes to steel to food. Just about everything seems to be getting a 3D printing makeover. Let's take a look at this week's tech news stories. Sushi singularity. Imagine going to a restaurant and ordering a negative stiffness honeycomb structure. That's a sushi dish of octopus that creates the sensation of disappearing and then bouncing back as you bite into it. Japan plans to start up a sushi singularity this year, where everything on the menu will be 3D and laser printed or CNC router cut. What's extraordinary is that each meal will be hyper-personalized based on the bodily fluids and DNA of patrons. 3D printing in SA to help prevent the spread of COVID-19. Lockdown had the South African 3D printing community step forward to help those on the front line. Times Live reported last week that 3D printers were whirring and buzzing, printing reusable masks, screens, and even unique valves for ventilators. 3D printing meets F-drones. Williamson's Marine Products have partnered with Singapore-based drone delivery provider F-Drones for last-mile delivery of its 3D printed spare parts. This partnership model is interesting because it allows the two companies to disrupt the existing supply chain and offer a service that is faster, cheaper, and greener. Nature-inspired colorful 3D prints. The University of Illinois is experimenting with 3D print that mimics the same vibrant colors you see in nature, like when light rays reflect off of minerals or the wings of certain animals. Structural coloration is the phenomenon behind these colors. The team has managed to replicate a small variety of color and are looking to increase the industrial relevance of this process. So there's a possibility that one day you'll be able to order 3D printed paint the color of dragonfly wings. Smartphone powers 3D printer. A new open source 3D printer called the LumiBee has launched. Users print 95% of the parts powered by an app on their phone and assemble everything themselves. The LumiBee uses a photosensitive liquid resin which becomes pliable when in contact with light from the screen of a mobile phone. WASP is constructing a village. The team at WASP, or World's Advanced Saving Project, is 3D printing homes using the earth and dirt from the building site. This sustainable method is driving the Tekla village build, set for completion in 2020. Let's hope their vision can still come into fruition. Boeing is using Varjo headsets to train astronauts for its Starliner spacecraft. Boeing's reusable capsule Starliner will be responsible for carrying crew to and from the International Space Station. Their end-to-end VR astronaut training system is a world first and consists of VR headsets with a unique bionic display system. January.AR's algorithm accurately predicts individualized glycemic response. A new AR algorithm from January.AR has effectively predicted glycemic responses in people with type 2 diabetes and pre-diabetes. This algorithm is critical to offering highly personalized food and activity recommendations for patients. And now it's time for our African Innovation Spotlight. Today we are highlighting the University of Pretoria's Faculty of Health Sciences and how they pioneered a 3D printed middle ear bone transplant. Last year, lead pioneer Professor Mashadu Chifularu transplanted a 3D printed ear bones into a patient with an underdeveloped middle ear. The process essentially rebuilt the patient's middle ear ossicles with the help of titanium, which is biocompatible. The transplant procedure took just under 2 hours to complete and was an overall success. In addition to treating conductive hearing loss, the 3D printed ear bones could be used to simplify other oral procedures because they lessen the risks associated with intrusive ops. The breakthrough surgery also reduces the risk of facial nerve paralysis, which can happen during the ear surgery. The 3D printing revolution is happening in Africa, and that is a proudly South African story. Thanks to all the amazing human beings for donating to our Maharishi Institute already. Over the last 4 shows, we have raised over 8,000 Rand, and we are hoping to raise this number to 10,000 Rand before the end of this season. You can scan the QR code on the screen and make a donation. All the proceeds from tonight's donations will go to help educate students in South Africa. Maharishi Institute is doing its best to keep students learning and needs data who are working remotely and can't afford their own data. MI has switched almost 1,000 students to online courses since the 20th of April and is having a phased approach of bringing back students while some are still remaining working remotely. So all these students are from really tough financial backgrounds, and we'll leave the QR code up on the screen as much as possible, allowing you the opportunity to donate. Also, our big giveaway from Maharishi Institute will allow one learner a chance to win a USA business degree here in South Africa from the Maharishi Institute. The student who wins this opportunity will get all the South African qualifications, daily lunch, and learning materials. And the value of this opportunity is a whopping 2.2 million Rand, or $125,000. Make sure to register on our website to be eligible for this prize. We'll be randomly selecting the winner from the registrations allowing you, the winner, to nominate one lucky student. The winner will be announced at the end of season 1 during the Workforce of the Future show happening on the 2nd of July. And now it's time to move into our main segment of tonight's show, our 3D Printing Revolution panel. We want to discuss the incredible trajectory that 3D printing is on and how we can use it to completely change the way manufacturing, supply chains, and distribution is done. We're going to dive into some of the amazing benefits to humanity, the designers, and the customers that they will receive from this revolution. We're also going to look at how we can educate the youth to embrace this technology, and especially in South Africa and Africa, how can we instill a culture of hacking and making cool products? As 3D printing becomes abundant in the world, we're going to need to develop our imaginations. My brother Kevin loves the quote from Einstein, "Imagination is more important than knowledge," and I think it's never been more true than now. Tonight we have Petra Rees, Pablos Holman, and Andrei Wagner. Let me welcome them onto the stage. Let's start with Petra Rees. Petra Rees is a social entrepreneur who has commercialized and sold a few African ventures. Petra is currently scaling her award-winning 3D printing platform beyond schools and homes to mines, manufacturers, and healthcare to solve some supply chain constraints and hyper-local innovation. Petra, thanks for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
How are you doing? I mean, you've been going down an incredible journey looking at how to educate the youth on 3D printing. I mean, how's that been?
It's always so much fun to work with young kids. To be honest with you, I got involved in 3D printing because I wanted to raise creative geniuses one day. So I was on this trajectory, and actually thanks to Singularity University Summit, I got introduced to the various application of 3D printing and then implemented it in our business. And we developed this 3D design content management platform that is now applied in various schools in South Africa and at homes, and it goes beyond education now. And it's just been so incredible to hear the stories from the students, from the young kids' parents who saying that, this whole new journey has been absolutely transformational for their whole family, because for the kids, anything they can imagine can be made.
I think it's so awesome. And I mean, what can they make? The types of printers and the app that you've made, it's an award-winning app. What can they make from the app and from the printer?
Yeah, so essentially students, kids, parents, in school, content, any content that they need for that specific lesson or that specific idea. And in addition, they can co-create and co-design their own things. So really letting their creative juices going. And we've seen that, specifically even with kids who are as young as 10, they were able to, one of the boys was able to, taught himself how to 3D model and won recently a big national competition, 3D modeling competition. So it's absolutely phenomenal to see how they can be using, our application, but building on it. And I think that's the absolute focus on any exponential technologies, is that you want to allow the community to build on it. You want to be able to plug into other ecosystems and really be able to grow from there.
No, super exciting, eh? And what sort of skills do you need to get into 3D printing? Do you need to have animation skills or design, or what sort of skills do you need?
Yeah. So it's a very good question. So on the spectrum, it's something that, you start as soon as possible, start them young. I see my kids at the age of 5 and 7 problem solving and design a valve for a lilo that burst. And now they were like, "Mommy, these face shields that you've been donating to these hospitals, can't you make them as superheroes?" And they designed their own superheroes with basically a design app for that age by using a finger. And as you progress, obviously that gets specialized when you can start now getting youngsters into 3D design and 3D modeling. But already with a 3-week course, you can get a kid out of school with matric to be able to get into the value chain of the 3D printing. And I think that's what's incredible to be able to use in Africa, because people often think that 3D printing and additive manufacturing is for the high-skilled jobs, like your material scientists and engineers and all of that. But there's so many jobs that we can create in Africa, in that chain, in that process, from operating machines, from installing them, maintaining them, taking things off it, perfecting them, selling them, consulting, training, filaments, production, you name it. And it's almost, it's one of the few technologies that kind of 4IR technologies that really allows kids to be taken through an apprenticeship model, where in a matter of weeks, you can get them involved. They can actually start generating income and be part of, this new revolution and getting the right skills to be able to succeed in the future. In comparison to, others like coding and machine learning and all of that obviously requires much longer. And I think that's the beauty where we need to understand in Africa. I strongly believe that, most of us know the story about the boy who harnessed the wind. Now imagine what William Kamkwamba would have been able to invent if he had an access to a 3D printer and a 3-week design course. How much impact he would have made on this world and on his community even more.
No, it's so exciting. I think he would have been like Pablos. That leads us on to our next panelist. Thanks for that. We'll get into more detail. So our next panelist is Pablos Holman. Pablos is a futurist, inventor, and notorious hacker with a unique view into breaking and building new technologies. Pablos is consulting worldwide on invention and design projects that assimilate new technologies, making wild ideas a bit more practical and vice versa. He helped create the world's smallest PC, 3D printers at Makerbot, spaceships with Jeff Bezos, artificial intelligent agent systems, and the Hackerbot, a Wi-Fi seeking robot. Pablos, great to have you on the show.
Hey there. Great to be on the show. My first time to South Africa.
Yeah, it's great to have you, and we will have you one day in real life, in reality. But currently we're connecting over a live stream while you're in San Francisco.
Great.
So Pablos, we were just chatting a bit earlier, and you actually told us that you were one of the first inventors of 3D printed food, which I think is quite extraordinary. Do you want to tell us a bit about that journey?
Yeah, it was a long time ago. I was working on inventing new types of 3D printing technology. This is more than a decade ago, and at the lab we have a team working on the science of cooking and inventing new techniques for chefs and things. And then we also have a machine shop with 3D printers. And so, probably nobody else in the world had those two things in the same place. And so I started trying to 3D print food. And the idea was, two things. One is you want to be able to customize meals for people, but also you want to be able to reduce the amount of waste used, created the way we feed people. And a lot of the problems with how you make waste when you're with food is not industrial. It's more in the last mile between the store and your mouth. And if we could improve that part of the process, then we could really, do a better job of feeding people more efficiently.
Incredible. And you did this over 10 years ago. And we just saw today the sushi singularity in Japan. It's incredible how these technologies evolve over time.
Yeah, that's exactly the idea that I was working on. And I tried at the time to convince people to work on this idea, but everyone thought it sounded crazy. So I went to the biggest food companies in the world and tried to convince them that we should try to build 3D printers for food. And I was a complete failure, for years. And eventually people started taking it a little more seriously, and it sounds a little less crazy every year, I guess.
Amazing. And you also, you also were involved in the Makerbot, which is, one of the first commercial 3D printers that came out, right?
Well, it was the first consumer 3D printer, the first desktop 3D printer.
The consumer.
And in a lot of ways, the reason we've heard of 3D printing now. The guys who started Makerbot are hackers, and they had never seen a 3D printer until I showed them mine at the lab. Because in those days, they were very industrial tools, industrial prototyping tools that cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. So the Makerbot was the first, desktop 3D printer. I'm just an advisor for the company, or I was at the time.
Very cool. And now you've got another crazy concept that you're working on for composite, which is on-demand retail. Do you want to just explain that to us?
Right. Yeah, I think a lot of times with 3D printing, we get caught up with this idea around additive manufacturing, which is cool, but I think the real power of 3D printing really just comes from the fact that it's a programmable machine. It's a programmable tool. It doesn't care if it ever makes the same thing twice. And when you start living with that reality, you start to reimagine a lot of the way that we do different things. And for a long time, I've been imagining how to re-architect industries using that kind of capability. And so Composite is a company trying to automate apparel manufacturing. We don't get to use 3D printers because in a lot of ways they can't make products people want to buy, but using the same concepts from 3D printing, using 2D printers, we're able to automate apparel manufacturing and produce clothes on demand. And so we've been doing that for 6 years. And so the way it works is we wait for somebody to click buy now, we print your clothes and ship them out the next day. And that way there's no inventory, no inventory risk, no overstock, no liquidation, no brand devaluation, and things get a lot more profitable because you're never guessing about what's going to sell. And so we're using that as kind of a model for how we think a lot of industries and a lot of consumer products should be architected.
Wow, just completely mind-blowing. I mean, I think you make it sound so obvious and so simple, but I think you have to be playing around in 3D printers for at least 15 years to come up with concepts like that and make them sound so obvious. But thanks so much. We're going to move on to our next panelist for now, who is Andrei Wagner. Andrei Wagner is the founder and CEO of Toyz, a leader in data-driven process automation software for additive manufacturing. He is also the chair of digital manufacturing at Singularity University in Silicon Valley. Andrei is a frequent speaker on 3D printing, the digital thread in manufacturing at events such as Wired, Rapid, Open Innovations, CES, and more. He's been quoted in publications such as BBC News, MIT, Chicago Tribune, and Bloomberg. Prior to Toyz, Andrei invested in and supported capital raises of companies in Nigeria and India. Andrei, thanks for being on the show.
Thanks, great to be here.
Thanks, and you tuning in from the UK at the moment?
That's right, I'm in lockdown on the coast of England. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you sound perfect. And
okay, great.
I mean, you've been involved in 3D printing also for quite a long time. And how have you seen this evolve over the last decade?
Well, when I got into the industry about a decade ago, it was still a dream, but I could see that there was a lot of demand for it. I was running a venture capital fund in Nigeria, and a plane crashed and 159 people died because it takes a minimum of 3 days to get a spare part into the country. So obviously there's a need, there's a supply chain failure. And additive manufacturing at the time was only just coming out of its shell. When we first started really hearing about it, Pablos was helping Makerbot commercialize the first consumer 3D printer. In the industry, it's already been around for a few decades, but only ever as a prototyping tool. And so the last 10 years have really been about getting this tool to be production ready and produce parts that are now flying on thousands of planes all around the world, or rather not flying right now, but usually are. So it's really exciting to have been part of this industry over the last 10 years or so.
Unbelievable. And how do you think this is going to change supply chain? Like, what will we be able to, solve these airplane crashes and things like that?
Well, Singularity has this idea that it will impact 1 billion, or each initiative should impact 1 billion people within 10 years. And I don't think we'll be printing spare parts on demand within 10 years, but will we be printing better, faster, more efficient, lightweight parts for every plane out there? Absolutely, that's already happening, right? There's tens of thousands of components in aircraft right now that are being printed. So I think that's the first step we have to go to. We have to get confident and comfortable with this as a production tool in a centralized fashion, right? And now the next decade is about distributing that. Once we've gained that confidence, once we've gained that comfort, can we move on to getting that comfort outside of your central production facility? And that's happening. So we're seeing some indication of that much faster now than, or much more demand for that now than when we first started. And I agree with Pablos. It's not just about 3D printing. It's really an exact idea of producing what you need, when you need it, where you need it. And I think that we can make happen with other digital manufacturing equipment too.
And there's probably a big convergence that needs to take place between blockchain and 3D printing and AI to optimize the supply chains, to really make it, disrupt and hit that knee of the curve.
Well, there's a lot of problems to solve on the way. You're quite right. And what I'm most excited about is that convergence between AI on the design side and digital manufacturing equipment, computer-driven manufacturing on the other. So that convergence has already started happening, not only in 3D printing, but in construction technologies, in machining, in other areas of production. And so that for me is the most exciting convergence to speak of at the moment.
No, it's so exciting. And we're gonna move into, thanks for that, we're gonna move into our main part of the panel with the Q&A. And we're getting a couple of questions coming through. If you have any questions for the panel, just write them in the YouTube comments. Our first question, Pablos, we're going to ask you, as a hacker, what are some of the ways 3D printing is going to change for your process? Traditionally you would to be a much longer product design cycle. How is this going to change your process of invention?
Well, I think, for inventors, we've been using 3D printing a long time because we only ever need to make one of something. That's why these machines were called rapid prototypers long before they were called 3D printers, because they were a way to build a part that wasn't maybe production grade, but was fast, and that way you could iterate. And the truth is, for almost every kind of product, the most valuable metric to track is product cycle. How quickly can you adapt the product for the market? How quickly can you change it to get it to be competitive, to make it what the customer needs or wants right now? That's the hard thing. And the reason I use like the apparel industry as an example, their typical product cycle is 9 months, often twice that. The winners in the apparel industry got the product cycle down from 9 months to 9 weeks. That's Zara and H&M. That's why they won. I got it down from 9 weeks to 9 hours, right, using 3D printing technology. And so that's what's possible in a lot of industries where you're making a product. And that means it goes through this phase transition where now, instead of producing before you have a customer, we produce it after it's already sold. And so you guess right every time. That's very, very powerful. And it's a way to make industries, in every kind of business that makes a consumer product, more profitable with less waste. And that's really, really the kind of thinking that we need going forward for everything. So hopefully that answers the question.
No, I mean, that's incredible. I think the whole idea of just accelerating the pace of getting the answer is really going to help us all create better products much faster. So I think that's incredible from move from 9 weeks to 9 hours. It's quite a leapfrog. We're going to move on to some of the questions from the audience. They're coming through fast and furious. Let's ask this from sorry if I can't pronounce your name. Sankarana Rayan is asking from Hyderabad in India, how far along is metal 3D printing application in various industries? Andrei, if you want to answer that one.
Yeah, I can. So we do a lot of work with Boeing. Our software drives all of Boeing's additive manufacturing facilities, for example. And what's interesting to see there is how much information is needed to produce reliable parts in metal, right? Like, you need to know, not only do you need to redesign the part and get it certified, but as you're getting the part produced, you need to know, how often was this metal powder used in a printer? Was it sieved? Was it tested properly? And there's a whole process that we're currently just going through. That commercialization aspect, that making the process more ready to compete in the current industries that have already got decades of experience. That's what we're currently going through. So the technology is there. It has been for a while. We have been able to experiment, as Pablo said, with these tools. And now it's all about making it more reliable, more commercially applicable. And it's really inventing processes. And at the same time, what I'm seeing in the market is that there's a lot of innovation that's happening that are reducing the cost of 3D printing and metal. For example, there's a new company out of Boston that, the current best metal laser printers print with 4 lasers at any given moment. And these guys are printing with 2,000 at any given moment. So several orders of magnitude change in terms of how many lasers are being used, and therefore how fast the print can go, and therefore how expensive the print is. So there's really exciting things still happening. I think at the last count, there were 180 different metal 3D printer startups in the world.
Wow.
So a lot of room for innovation still happening today. That's right.
I remember I actually saw my first 3D steel prints in 2015. I went to the opening of the Netherlands Tech Lab, the Singularity University Netherlands Tech Lab in 2015, and they had these incredibly beautiful steel 3D prints. So I think that it's been developing over the last couple of years, and it's probably reaching the tipping point, as you were saying now. We're going to move on to our next question from Catherine Jacob Guillemot.
Yeah, Petra has a printer. Check it out.
Sorry.
Pointing as I'm talking. I was actually just pointing behind me on this little desktop. Well, it is fairly little. Desktop machine that is around about $6,000 odds, and actually can print material that is stronger than metal. So just by the way, it's not just when people think about big metal, like big sensoring machines, you can start right here.
I think that's incredible. It's also about the new materials that are in the new types of products we can make with all these new materials that are going to come out. We've actually got another question for you, Petra.
We've seen as well.
Sorry, Andrei?
I was just going to add, Mick, sorry about the latency, that even if it's cost prohibitive to buy a big metal machine, as you said, Petra, there's cheaper ones available in the market today. And there's a lot of people experimenting with building the molds, the sand cast, printing in sand, which you can then use to fill a fluid metal in and for forming. So there's a 3D printing as a tool to support existing production processes is a very valuable first step if you're still in the learning journey and you don't want to go directly to direct metal printing. Hugely valuable. Sorry, I just wanted to add to what Petra said there.
No, thanks for that. That was fantastic. We've got a question, Petra, for you from Catherine. We are looking at investing at a 3D printer at the university. I teach at. Any recommendations of which ones to look at? And the applications would be printing things like small to medium props, etc. for film.
Right. So I'm feeling like I'm sitting at a quite a perfect spot. I can be just like moving my head, and and then pointing behind me and tell you like start there. It wasn't intended that way. It's just my workshop, but essentially, yes, you can start, with fantastic machines that are literally the one next to the metal printer. So, for example, this Gato, again, they are starting, those kind of quality machines that you're looking for at university are starting around, South Africa, I assume. I can talk rands. So around, 25,000 odd rands, and then it allows you to print variety of materials. Probably the ones that you're even talking about, whether you need, not too sure about the props, but, it allows you to start with materials that are quite solid, that will last, or also flexible types. So, you can already start by investing in this kind of machine that has a nice, decent size of bed. But, there are many others in this kind of range.
Thanks. And we're actually going to be giving away an incredible prize at the end of the show. That is one of Petra's 3D printers that will be going to somebody's home for 3 weeks to see what you can create with your family. Pablos, we've got a question for you next, which comes from Gugu Manyati. First time engaging on the subject matter at this scale. Please can Pablos elaborate on the 3D printing of food? What are the typical SKUs?
Well, the idea of an SKU kind of goes away when you're not keeping stock. SKU means stock keeping unit. That's for inventory. We don't have inventory anymore. So just imagine, you go to a farm, you grow a tomato, but it's genetically selected for flavor and nutrition. And it's so ripe it would fall apart in your hand. You could never get it to a market without it being destroyed. But you pick that tomato, flash freeze it, powder it, put it in a sealed toner cartridge, and then that goes in your 3D printer. And when it's time to make a meal for you, it puts down a pixel of tomato, hydrate it with a needle, zap it with a laser to cook it, rinse and repeat, and you are making a meal that's customized for you. It avoids your allergies and dietary restrictions, maybe injects your pharmaceuticals. We're making a meal for you. There is no SKU, it's custom. And that really is a powerful way to, over time, we could, customize your diet in a way that's really valuable. If you got to get off of sodium, we could drop it by a couple milligrams a day for months. You would never feel it happening. Things that are impossible the way we eat now. But the other major benefit is that you generate no local waste. I'm not shipping water all over the planet. I'm just shipping powdered tomatoes. And that's a way to preserve a lot of foods with, all the flavor and all the nutrition with no chemical preservation and in a lot of cases, no cold chain either. So that's how I see it working. Yeah.
It actually can. We had a discussion around food security a few weeks ago, and that could help. That is one of the solutions we could look at for food security.
That's a big part of why we worked on it. Was we could see food security becoming a bigger problem globally.
Awesome. We're going to move on to a question from Komotso. Komotso is asking, Andrei, what is the average printing time? It was mentioned that 3D printing was historically used for prototyping. What volumes can be expected out of a 3D printer?
Well, that's. I think we can all take that, guys. But we saw the construction of a house earlier on in the news. So depending on the type of printer, there's no obvious dimension limit. Of course, smaller is easier, especially for metals. And the printing time will obviously be related to the type of material you're trying to print as well. But what was really telling for me was that I kept on that Singularity getting questions about how fast is it? Is it slow? People had only ever seen domestic consumer 3D printers that are pretty slow to print something. And what happened in around 2015 is HB came out with a printer and said, hey, our 3D printer is 10 times faster than anybody else's. And then another company in the Bay Area came out 3 months later and said, our printer is 100 times faster than anybody else's. And then, the same year, towards the end of the year, Chinese companies came out and said, we're doing it 1,500 times faster. So within a 1 year period, even within a 3 month period, all the questions I got on speed went away. And I feel the same way about the remaining materials that may not have been affected by that. That was all plastic printing, polymer printing at the time. But metal is changing equally fast. I just mentioned the example of the metal printer with 2,000 lasers. We're on a trajectory to solve the engineering challenges that existed in additive related to reliability or speed or material availability. All of those challenges are being solved at the moment. We've gone from maybe 24 different materials in 2008 to more than 1,000 different materials available to be 3D printed today. So a lot of innovation has happened, and depending on your material, you can get a print in just a few minutes now. So I think we'll see that at the end of the show, Mick. At the end of the show, you're planning to reveal what you guys are printing. Is that right?
Exactly. Yeah, it's about a 2-hour print, and it's already been going for quite a while. So it should be ready in about 30 minutes or so.
Great.
So we're going to move on to our next question, which is from Tim Merriweather. Tim is asking, what would be the best way to get my kids into 3D printing? What can they create? I think let's start with you, Petra.
Awesome. So I think that, my thing is always start them young. They're like sponges, and it's unbelievable how quickly they can learn. It actually a little bit frightens me because they can start like replacing things already. So, it's the best part is just to start getting them actually watching the 3D printer to start with, so that they can actually understand, how it's built. And I'm talking about the basic domestic printers, the classic, your FFF machines. And then really starting with apps that are out there, or even software that is out there that is free typically. And that allows kids to, either, as I mentioned, even, ask exactly using a finger, or, if they are a little bit older and obviously they can read, they can start getting more accurate. So the most favorite ones is the likes of Tinkercad. And, we're currently running a great design competition that is free to enter for any kids. And, so it's a perfect starting point for your child to say, get involved. And our current theme is design your superhero. So even if your child may be thinking about how does it work and what can I do, just let him be inspired by something like this. Design a superhero that can fight COVID-19. How would that superhero look like? What powers would they have, and so forth? So you can start them right there. And then slowly, as they start getting engaged in this, they really will start solving the problems themselves. They will just surprise you how often you didn't think about it. Your first point was like, oh, let me get it fixed. And they already start thinking like, no, come, let's just print it. It's amazing how the kids, by being exposed for a couple of months, they will actually start, themselves coming up with a solution. And that's what we want. We want our kids to be able to solve wicked problems one day in our societies, right?
No, absolutely. A lot of people are asking, what have you actually printed? What do you have stuff in your room there you can show us some of your 3D prints?
But I'm just thinking, I don't want to necessarily go into the messy part of the room, but I'm just like show you this is exactly like the creation, the creation of my kids. And they, as I said, they were bored out of this COVID-19, going back to school wearing a normal mask or a face shield. So they said, Mom, can we design a unicorn? Then my son, obviously, he needed a Batman, and then their own idea, they said, Mom, you are a Wonder Woman. So that's just a quick application of a child being bored, wearing a standard stock face shield during COVID-19, and and start designing. But essentially, you starting with this kind of plastics. These are actually biodegradable, and they actually offer great, different plastic will have different properties, but you can start already with those kind of prints. They have great details already. You can actually see, I'm pointing a little bit on the camera, you can actually see the star is really great. It's about a 2-hour print. And you can get to quite nice, decent details for prints. People love it around the house. People love to solve, sprinkles issues in their garden. They like to have little hooks and, replacement things for their houses. So there's a lots of things. And obviously in the education space, I can go on forever and ever and ever around different puzzles and worlds and continents and shapes and all of these things that actually kids can add to their education. I mean, we even have sensory kids that are using just the normal letters. And I'm sorry, I'm just going to now this is going to be a problem. But these sensory letters that actually kids learning how to write and read, so they can actually touch them. And now they can actually it was proven by the teachers that the kids got it faster to learn how to read and write by touch, right? We love to touch.
No, it's so cool. I think it's so cool. I think it's so exciting that as we migrate more and more into the virtual space, there's still this huge opportunity for us to explore and discover in this new malleable 3D printing world. Pablos, what are you seeing in the Bay Area? How are kids getting into 3D printing in the US?
I don't know. I'm not paying as close attention. I mean, my daughter is now 13 years old, and she printed her first pair of high-heeled shoes at home on a Makerbot when she was 6.
Wow.
So it's just a normal part of her life, So her school has Makerbots and Glowforge and other types of tools like that. And so I think kids just grow up, with this different sense of how things are made and how they can turn their ideas into physical reality, and when I was growing up, I had to have a garage full of tools, and it was a much different thing. And now they can probably focus more on their imagination and design and less on the process of making things.
Andrei, do you want to add to this point for the kids?
For that particular point, just an amazing mindset shift from what is available to buy in the store to what can I create. We're already beyond that. We can't make that shift anymore. Maybe Pablos can because he's been building all his life. But most of us are tied to what our brain goes immediately to what can I get, rather than what can I create. And so I can't wait to see these kids that are growing up with these tools in a fairly natural way, the same way maybe the last generation grew up with computers and are able to use them to their full extent without being locked into the old mindset that we had. It's really exciting to see.
Awesome. So we've got a question from Patricia Gomez, who's our Singularity chapter head from Cape Town. Thanks for tuning in, Patricia. She's asking, could you share some companies that are using 3D printing in the fashion market and in the food market? Some examples of companies that are doing it.
Well,
we can start with you, Andrei, or Pablos.
Maybe there's better answers. I don't know. In the fashion market, 3D printing hasn't been particularly relevant because the kinds of textiles you want to wear are not the kinds of things that 3D printing is very useful for. The most significant example that I know of is Adidas started working with carbon to make 3D printed sneakers. And you can see the Adidas Futurecraft is now on the market. I think they have, several hundred carbon machines printing I guess what you'd call the midsole for a sneaker, the cushy part. And you can look those up online and they look, unique and weird and obviously 3D printed. It's pretty cool. I don't know what the status of that project going forward is. As far as food goes, my impression is that while people have started taking this more seriously over the last decade, there are only a few projects where they've really commercialized, 3D printing in food. In most cases, it's not even 3D printing; it's robotics preparing meals, and you can see that with like, there's a company in Boston that has a robotic meal prep at a restaurant. There's a couple companies have tried to make robots that make pizzas, and another one in California called Momentum that makes a robot, or used to be Momentum, I don't know the name of it now, but anyway, it makes a robot that makes burgers, like gourmet hamburgers, on demand. So there's some advancement there. A lot of the other things I've seen are just prototypes of people kind of trying to figure out how to steer into this. We have a little ways to go before you'll see that. There's also one company called Foodini. I don't know what the status of that company is, but they made a kind of desktop food printer that might be interesting to check out.
No, awesome, thanks. Andrei or Petra, do you guys want to add anything to that?
This is the example of, this is the Futurecraft. You can see the lattice structure that's being printed at the bottom there. That's what's being 3D printed. And the other industry that I know of that's benefiting quite a lot is the jewelry industry. And again, as a secondary tool, not maybe as a direct application, but especially for printing the molds that will then be filled with the liquid metal for forming. That is increasingly being 3D printed. So all your custom jewelry for, I don't know, the class rings, for example, seeing a lot of that starting to happen. And if you just head over to Shapeways, a lot of creative people, a lot of people that have great ideas, but didn't necessarily learn the craft of getting jewelry made. They have a much easier time now to start selling their wares. So there's hundreds of designers that are selling 3D printable jewelry on those websites that are directly 3D printed. So both in direct printing and as a secondary tool, both really valuable.
What can you share with us? What are some of those websites? You said one was Shapeways.
Yeah, Shapeways is a US site, kind of aggregator of designers, and they will then print the objects for you and ship them to you. But I'm sure Petra and Pablos know other sites where you can download designs and print them in your home that have jewelry elements or fashion elements in them. Maybe others.
Makerbot made a site called Thingiverse, which is sort of like Flickr or GitHub or something for 3D printed objects. So you can upload and download designs there. You can kind of buy and sell them and trade them and stuff like that. There's also a company called iMaterialize, which is kind of like Shapeways. That's another one where you can have your own designs printed by someone with equipment and they'll ship them to you. Usually just in a few days, you can turn around designs. So if you can't or don't have a 3D printer, even if you can have a 3D printer, a lot of times Shapeways or companies like that are really helpful, because then you could get something made with a printer that you can't afford or don't have, so they're really useful services.
No, I love it. It's such an exciting space.
And in South Africa, there must be other sites that allow you to order things home, right, Petra?
Well, I think that, specifically, I just wanted to add to some of the other sites around the jewelry and etc., whether it's, Thingiverse, or people can just browse like My Manufacturing, etc. But there is actually also a quite a cool fashion company it's a Dutch company. I always struggle remembering the name. I really think that they should rebrand them because I always get it wrong. It's Ari van Twillert. I'll put it up somewhere. And they actually focus specifically on jewelry and underwears, because they find that with customization, for example, people might struggle with bras and so forth. Now they can customize them by obviously scanning your body so that they really fit perfectly. And I think that's the beauty around using 3D printer, is that you can really customize it so well. for someone. So that's obviously the one application, and besides the others that we already mentioned. But there are quite a few jewelry or at local schools, design schools, that are already coming up with some amazing 3D printed designs, and it's more and more happening. But we don't yet, from what I understand, have a platform. So there's your opportunity in South Africa to be able to share that. But interestingly enough, I actually have an 11-year-old client, and she is making her own designs and selling them at school. A little entrepreneur.
Wow. That's what we need. We need those teenage entrepreneurs.
Exactly.
We've got quite an interesting question next from Bosan Tiani, who's asking, any thought on local filament manufacturing in Africa, converting plastic wastes into filament? And Pablos, I know you had a project with Bill Gates where you were trying to take plutonium and make it usable or something like that. So let's if you want to kick off this answer.
Well, I think in a lot of cases, with recycling of materials, you really want to be looking at the end-to-end energy cost, right? I don't know about South Africa, but in the US, we've been recycling for 40 years or more, and, it's not really working. So a lot of times, by the time you burn enough coal to recycle the plastic, it's not really worth it. So that's something you want to measure before you get too far down a recycling process. With 3D printing, you're making some waste, but remember, with additive manufacturing, you're only putting down the pixels of material that you need. Everything else in the world was made by starting with a big piece of material and cutting away the stuff you didn't want and throwing that out. So like the apparel industry is about 30% waste on the cutting room floor. 30% of the fabric that goes in doesn't become clothes. So with 3D printing, 100% of the plastic that goes in becomes the thing you wanted to print. And so it's more efficient in that sense. But then again, 3D printing, the machine uses more energy per, call it per cubic inch than injection molding does. So you have losses on that end. So a lot of times these notions about how to handle waste and recycling and stuff, you really need to look in a broader context, end to end, what the most efficient thing to do is. And so, I think these conversations really need to be deeper than they tend to be. So I'm not answering your question about what's available in South Africa. A lot of the plastics used in 3D printers, in order to get high quality prints, you want to start with high quality plastics. And those there tend to be recycling processes for. So ABS is probably the most popular. We're using these, PET and other plastics that are a little more easy to biodegrade and things like that as well. So you can choose materials, but depending on your needs.
Nilo De Freitas is asking, did you 3D print those glasses, Pablos?
These glasses were designed using what you would now call a 3D printer in the probably in the early 90s, and they're special glasses that I love, but the factory that makes them blew up, and they'll never make them again. So, yeah, they're really good glasses, though. Oakley made them one. And I've stockpiled enough to last me the rest of my life.
Sorry?
Yeah, I just wanted to just add like a local South African example around that. So just one, it's happening in terms of recycling. The local CSIR, which is obviously the government agency for innovation, they literally have that that machine that grinds the PET bottles, and then you have the materials coming on the other side. It's very rudimental. I'm obviously completely oversimplifying that, but essentially what I'm trying to say is that, then you will have what Pablo was talking about, and you will have also like elasticity being lost in that recycling process. But how awesome is to start somewhere that you can have a machine powered by a human arm using a waste in a community area, right? Just by collecting plastic bottles and making filaments. may not be the perfect print, right? I'm not talking about let's start building like some extremely sophisticated structures with it. But how awesome is to start with that in Africa?
Totally awesome. Guys, I think we're running out of time. We've got a whole bunch of questions. I just want to end off by asking you each to give any practical tips or any final thoughts on 3D printing for our audience. How do you get your kids involved? How do you become a maker yourself? Andrei, let's start with you.
On the spot, I think that it's really important to remember that it's not as hard as you think it is. And don't be put off by these expensive metal printers that you see out there. If you're a small company or if you're even a teenager starting with something, it's as easy to start designing something, getting it printed, just hold it in your hands in the first place. What we've seen in a lot of companies is that actually sending even mech engineering students into the shop floor and finding really simple problems to solve that just require a jig or a fixture or maybe a mold to be printed. Those kids have the power to come up with ideas, get something fixed, even if it's not solving the world's biggest problem. It is bringing to light all the opportunities that the technology does have. So start somewhere, even if it's not directly printing, turbofan blades or whatever it is that GE and Boeing are putting together. The opportunities are in every part of the stack, from printing, trinkets at school, to printing molds for injection molding, to printing customized hearing aids, to printing these high-grade metallic structures. There's something in there for everybody.
No, so awesome. Thanks for that. Petra, over to you.
Yeah, I totally share Andrei's sentiment. I'm sold. I'm in it like deep down. My kids are in it. Everyone I know is in it. So you really shift people's minds. It's absolutely unbelievable what you can do with small steps that Andrei mentioned. And I would like to also perhaps get a challenge to all of you out there who are having a business. And the challenge is, do you know the percentage of your supply chain that can be 3D printed today cost effectively? And if you don't know, then firstly, find out by getting maybe some of these students in that Andrei mentioned. And secondly, whatever the number was that you thought, double it in 2 years' time. Now, with that thinking, can you ignore this?
No, thanks. Love that. Pablos, over to you for some closing comments.
I mean, I think the beauty here is that, over time, we've been able to take computers and use them to do more and more things. And the exciting thing about 3D printing is we finally got our computers to the point where we could use them to make physical stuff. It's kind of like with the laser printer in the late 80s. People for the first time could create on a computer, but then have a physical manifestation of it. And now we're doing that. And 3D printing has come so far and it's so accessible that, your kids are running circles around you because they're doing it at school and you haven't tried it yet. So, I like it because I think it just really opens up the imagination to the way we can do things, the kinds of things we can create, and the more you know about how things can be made, the more you can create different designs that you're inspired by and that match what you're trying to do in the world. And so I think 3D printing is a really great way to just get into that. A lot of times the other things people are doing with computers, writing code isn't for everybody. You don't get to hold something at the end of the day. That can make it pretty cerebral and disconnected. But now that we have 3D printers, you could do a lot. So that's how I think about it.
No, yeah, I think we are tactile humans. We like to hold things and to feel them. So I think there's definitely a huge space for this 3D printing world first. Still. Up next, we have the Share the Tech Love segment coming up. We will be giving away some awesome prizes. And then we have a great performance from the amazing Andrei Dimane. I want to say thanks so much to our panel. It's been a real pleasure having you all here today. keep making stuff, and keep designing a better world. Thank you guys, and we're going to move on to our next section, Share the Tech Love. Now it's time for our Share the Tech Love section of the day. This is our way of giving you, the audience, something very cool related to our topic each week. All the weekly registered guests will go into a random draw, and this week up to 3 lucky winners will be eligible to win a prize. The prizes vary from physical to digital products each week. Tonight we have some really cool giveaways. We're going to be giving away 2 packs of these 3D printing cards from Toyz and Singularity University. These cards are a great way to educate you and stimulate conversations around 3D printing and additive manufacturing. Tamsin, please can we roll the winners? And our winners are Azza Mohammed and Ross Fitzcharles. Congrats to you guys. You have won yourselves the Toyz 3D printing card packs, and we'll send those to you. Our next prize we're going to be giving away is a very cool prize from Toyz. We'll be awarding someone with a 3D printer to their home for 3 weeks with filament and the Toyz award-winning educational and design app, so you can learn and make cool 3D prints like you saw in the panel with your family and with your kids. Tamsin, can we randomly pick out our winner? And we have Trisha Guran, who won that prize. Well done to you, Trisha. We will be contacting you and getting you your prize. Thanks so much. Thanks so much. That's all, folks. I hope you had a good time and took away some inspiration and insight. And go out and get yourself and your kids a 3D printer and start designing the products of the future. Let's stick together and collaborate so that we can get through this and come out ahead. Let's take a look at what we were 3D printing. Can we go to the 3D printing cam, please? And this is almost done. There we go. And we have printed a 3D printed face mask that is available for anyone. Here you can see I've got it here. Voila. A freshly printed face mask to keep you protected at all times. And you can go out and you can find this for free online to print this mask. Next week on Thursday the 25th of June, we'll be looking at how virtual and augmented reality is set to disrupt our own reality. We'll have Kathy Hackle in the studio, who is a prominent expert in VR and has worked at Magic Leap, as well as Dmitry Michalchuk, the founder and chief revenue officer of the Tesla suit, which is a full body VR suit, and Brian Afande, who is the co-founder of Black Rhino VR, an extended reality agency located in Nairobi, Kenya. Make sure to download the Singularity U South Africa app and engage with us and your fellow like-minded exponential thinkers. Also make sure to register on our website to stay informed and stand a chance to win in the Share the Tech Love giveaway next week, which will be something really cool, a virtual reality immersion where you'll get to be able to move into virtual reality worlds. You'll be able to play games in VR as well as meditate in VR. So make sure to register for next week. Remember to like and subscribe our social media channels as well as our YouTube channel. Hit the subscribe button and make sure to click that bell so that you get notified whenever we release a video. Lastly, please help to educate students from Maharishi Institute by donating. All you have to do is scan the QR code on the screen and the proceeds go to buying data and devices for students learning remotely. Let's help keep these students going. Each week we end the show with something beautiful. Tonight we've got Andrei Dimane, who is a South African singer-songwriter and recording artist from the Eastern Cape. From the choir to the big stage, Andrei is set to be a star. Take a lesson to this awesome performance. It's been a pleasure hosting you guys. I'm Mick Mann. Let's future-proof Africa together. Hope you're having a good time and keep smiling. Over to you, Andrei.
Do I excite you? Do you feel any more alive when I am with you? When I'm here right by your side, does it still feel like the start of the rest of our life? I've always loved you. This love is in and out of time. I had things under control right up until you walked in. But then I lost my cool, I started unraveling. Lord knows I've tried my best, but I'll never be a saint. So no, we can't do this again, we can't do this again. People know me, people know you, so I gotta fake my smile. But you can see right through me, even if it's been a while. Me and you being in the same room, there's never gonna be enough air. I can't breathe, I can't speak, I feel weak with you standing there. Strike a match, feel the heat. Light up a spark, someone start a fire to illuminate the dark. Tell me the truth, would you do in my shoes? Would you do in my shoes? Tell me, was it ever really love? Am I a fool if you're the one I'm always thinking of? Whatever happened, it was always gonna be rough. 'Cause you're addictive, I could never get enough. No matter what I try, I just can't pull the plug. I need my fix, boy, I'm still on you like a drug. Wore my heart on my sleeve, that was a first mistake. Can't believe I was so naive to think it would never break. Dropped my guard for a second and then it all was on the floor. I got burned, lesson learned, I shouldn't go there anymore. Strike a match, feel the heat, light up a spark. Could someone start a fire to illuminate the dark? Get real, little bit, tell me the truth. Would you? Oh, oh, oh. Tell me, was it ever really love? Was it love? Whatever happened, it was always gonna be rough. 'Cause you're addictive, I could never get enough. Ooh, no matter what I try, I just can't pull the plug. I need my fix, boy, I'm still on you like a drug. Still on you like a drug, still on you like a drug. I need my fix, boy, I'm still on you like a drug. Still on you like a drug, still on you like a drug. I need my fix, boy, I'm still on you like a drug. Ooh, tell me, was it ever really love? Am I the fool if you're the one I'm always thinking of? Oh, whatever happened, it was always gonna be rough. 'Cause you're addictive, I could never get enough. No matter what I try, I just can't pull the plug. I need my fix, boy, I'm still on you like a drive.